This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flex Network. I'm your host, as always, Flex Shane. You can follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. I'm joined by the immovable Alan Seslowski, because you can't get this guy off his game, baby. How you doing, Alan?
What's up, brother? How you doing, man? A lot of that. We got our new intro rolling today. So if you're just tuning in now and you missed the intro, rewind that, man. We're getting a little bit more legit by the day here.
Every single day. And actually, so I'm finally stepping up my audio game.
Yes.
I've been basically, since we started this about a year and change ago, our boy Flex Matt, he's been hounding me to step up my audio game. He's kind of an audio snob. You got to appreciate that, right? You got to get pushed to get better. So finally got the new mic. I figured I owed it to the people. I owed it to you, Alan. I owed it to Flex Matt, really just to get him off my back. But all right. So today we want to talk a little bit about some best ball strategy, specifically wide receivers. Are you going to be taking some of those young rookie studs? Dynasty people are doing the rookie draft. Rookie fever is hot right now. Or should you be taking some of those wily veterans, some of those guys who've been around the league for a little while? So we'll get to that in just a little bit. But Al, I want to talk a little bit about rookie draft strategy right now. Obviously, like I mentioned, a lot of people are doing their rookie drafts right now, and there's a lot of debate at the top. The 1, the 2, are you taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Are you taking Jonathan Taylor? But what about some of those later picks, like the 1.3, 1.4, 1.5? And specifically, we had a guy, he's a loyal Roster Watch listener. There's a lot of overlap between some of our fan base and, of course, the Roster Watch fan base, because
we were inspired by them,
We were inspired by them, absolutely. So one of the guys, he has the 1.03 in a non-Superflex rookie draft. And there's a guy who's trying to get the 1.3 by trading away his 1.4. So the question became, what is it going to take for this guy to just move back basically one spot? What would you be willing to move back to move back one spot in your rookie drafts? And so my first initial thought is, okay, there's really a big 5 running backs. So if you can get anything and move back one spot, right, you take the guy that falls to you, and you're laughing. But thinking about it a little bit further, I've seen, I know it's a little bit cockamamie, but I've seen guys like Jonathan Taylor fall to the 1.3. So my question to you, Al, is prior to the draft, if this guy's going to trade back to go from the 1.3 to the 1.4,
it's from the 3 to the 4.
It's from the 1 point. It's just one spot.
Right.
But my thought is, if there's even a 10% chance that Jonathan Taylor can fall to you at the 1.3, to me, that's worth at least a starter. I'm not talking about a wide receiver 1 or running back 1, but I want a guy that I can pretty much plug in as like a wide receiver, kind of like a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, and be comfortable with that to move back one spot, knowing that at the 1.4, there's basically 0% chance than in getting one of those guys. So what are your thoughts on that? Am I being greedy?
No. I mean, again, it all depends on who he wants, who he projects. I mean, for me, I've told you that I have J.K. Dobbins at number 2. I have Taylor at number 3. So if I feel like, for me, in my situation, if I can get Dobbins at that price, then of course it's going to take less for me to move back. Now you're saying I have to move back to the 4. So theoretically, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Taylor, and Dobbins could all go. So then I'm out of my first tier. So now, if you have to do a little research, you got to be a little bit of a detective. You got to kind of ask some of your league mates, who you think about out there? What do you like? Who, you got to get a feel. So if you're going to go drop a tier, you're going to want more money. You're going to want more. So, if you feel that's a significant drop, maybe you ask for the guy's second round pick. You were talking about like a wide receiver too. Sure. Maybe you can ask him, you want to move up. It's important to you. Give me Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup's value is down, but we still have a player. Someone that's a perceived wide receiver, low end 3, that could really be a mid-range 2.
So a guy that I was kind of thinking in that range also would be maybe like a Deontay Johnson, like a Darius Slayton, guys who, I mean, Deontay, I think, the wheels are up for him.
We're in the same area.
Yeah, kind of that general. So you agree that you're going to want just a little bit to move back. I mean, the alternative.
There's a top 3 for sure. In, as far as there's a big 3.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was on record last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, saying that I think J.K. Dobbins, after probably 2 or 3 weeks, is going to become the running back 1 in that offense over Mark Ingram. We don't necessarily agree, but I don't think we disagree at all on the talent of J.K. Dobbins. You're just maybe a little bit more high on a guy like Mark Ingram than I am, but We're talking semantics here. I mean, and this is all if you're willing to trade away that pick pre-draft, right? So if you're live in your draft, which guys, ladies, like to draft picks live in the draft, that's when they're the most valuable. So if you have the patience and you've got the fortitude to just wait until that draft is live and that 3 position is live on the clock, you're probably going to get the most yield because people just get, absolutely sick with their players. But my thought is, if you are absolutely set on either CEH or Jonathan Taylor as that, like the top tier, and then you believe that there's a bit of a drop off, and then guys like Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, even DeAndre Swift are all kind of in the same tier together, then if if CEH and Taylor go off 1-2, I would trade back and I would try to get like a second round pick or even like a starter live in the draft if your guy is not there. So
yeah,
just a little bit of
to answer your question, basically going from like 3 to 4. It depends how much of a drop you see that. Some people like myself don't see DeAndre Swift as that big of a drop off.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way in my mind, that Kerryon Johnson is gonna, it's like one of those things where they're both gonna play in practice, and then the coaches are gonna be like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's like, oh, I see. I like Kerryon Johnson. He's good.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little slight. He runs upright, and he's good, but. What situations are they going to use it? When you're on first down, when you're in 2nd and 8 and you need 6 yards, and you realize you can hand it to DeAndre Swift. You can throw him a little swing pass and he can make guys miss that end up in the backfield. And you're just going to go with him. And then what does that really leave left for Kerryon Johnson? It's going to be it's one of those situations where it's not that I think Kerryon Johnson's a bad player. It's just that DeAndre Swift is so good that it's going to be obvious to the coaches. And if you feel like he's in that tier, to answer your question, then you take a 3rd round pick in this to move back a little bit. I mean, if you really don't mind moving back, it's I think but you squeeze as much value as you can. Maybe you can get a nice a 2022 and this year and next year to move back a little bit. Squeeze the guy.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is, Al, I mean, like you said, like DeAndre Swift, he's a special player, and they took him in the high 2nd round of the NFL rookie draft or NFL draft. Yeah. And I mean, the reality is that I think people would agree Matt Patricia's kind of on the hot seat this season. He's got to get something done. He's going into his 3rd year with the Lions, and frankly, not much has really happened recently. So it's a big deal. A lot
of losing has happened. A lot of losing.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe give him a bit of a pass because Matt Stafford was injured last year for a big part of it, but they got to win games, and DeAndre Swift, I think, will help them win games over and above Kerryon Johnson. So, okay, so that's a little bit of rookie strategy at the high end of your rookie drafts. And we're going to talk a little bit more about rookies, but more in the context of a best ball. And even we can talk about some season long. I think that it's a little early for season long teams. That's really more July onwards. But hey, Al, we have a schedule now. That's exciting, right? That's a step in the right direction. At least the NFL is bullish enough to release a schedule.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the schedule, everyone knew the schedule already. Like, the schedule is set. It's just the week. That's what really gets lost in this, is that everyone thinks like, oh, this is the schedule reveal. No, everyone knows the schedule. There's an algorithm where you play everyone in your division twice, and then you rotate the divisions that you play. So it's just like, the schedule release is really what weeks do you play in. And I don't know if I've read a little bit deeper into it. They basically come up with like a bunch of permutations of the schedule, and then they look at them. So thousands of permutations get get generated, and they look through about 300 of them to decide which one they like. I don't know how they do it, but this permutation is great because it has this marquee matchup in this week and this matchup in that week. So I promised myself I wouldn't get sucked into schedule mania, but there was one game that stood out to me early on, and that's the Monday Night Football game in Week 3 with Kansas City and Baltimore. I'm interested in that one.
It's going to be a gooder, man. Actually, I think a fire game right off the bat is going to be New Orleans versus Tampa Bay. That's going to be exciting. I think it's in New Orleans, so it's going to be in the Superdome, which I don't know if anybody's been to the Superdome that's listening, but it's a pretty crazy environment. But there probably isn't going to be any fans, so it's not going to be the normal Superdome. It's going to be interesting. I mean, this is kind of an aside, but watching practices and stuff like that, like in the preseason, and there's cameras around, there's still a lot of fans that go to the practices, so there's still that noise. It's going to be really strange when players are in these massive domes and there's just no fans around. It's going to be crazy.
You talk about when you talk about from a sports betting perspective, and I don't want to get, we'll stick with our theme of wide receivers and all that kind of stuff. But you talk about like a team like Kansas City or Seattle that have huge home field advantages. Do those point spreads need to be adjusted for no fans now? I mean, the 12th man, that's a huge piece. That's worth at least a point on the spread, and now that's absent. So so far the point spreads that came out yesterday with the schedule release did not reflect that. Houston was a 10.5 point dog. I saw on Mike Lombardi's podcast. Week 1 against the Chiefs. I mean, come on, 10.5 is a lot for week 1. So and if Kansas City has no fans, that certainly mitigates that advantage, like you said.
Absolutely. Okay.
Your voice sounds good, by the way, man. This audio equipment is working well. You do sound, I really hear the sharpness in your voice.
Beautiful. I love it. Yep. I love it. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about your general approach to rookie wide receivers. Are you a guy that likes to go out and get kind of that shiny new toy, or do you tend to fade the rookie wide receivers?
In best ball?
In best ball. Let's talk about best ball first. Just in general, what's your approach?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. And I don't take rookie receivers anywhere in the meaningful round because, let's face it, most rookie receivers don't do anything consistently. And, they take time to adapt. Now, there are exceptions, but even A.J. Brown, who everyone's hyped about last year, he was good in spots, So I'll take him late, especially in best ball. I don't need to pick their weeks, but the market is way more aggressive on the top 5 or 6 receivers than I am. I've gotten some of those guys, the Mims, the second tier, third tier guys that have just as equal a chance to pop off as the other ones. So as a general philosophy in best ball format, I wait till the teen rounds, but everyone's beating me to the punch this year. I'd rather have guys like Devontae Parker a little bit earlier, or in that range, in that early 11, 12 range up. I'll pick my defense. I'll pick some other position players, some depth guys. If I have Dalvin Cook, I'll go for my backup running backs there. So no, how about you? What do you do with the rookie receivers? Do you catch the fever?
I'll take some chances late. So I'm just going to reference, because I'm live in a best ball right now. We're we're in round 18, which is basically the end. There's 20 rounds. I'm at the point where I'm starting to draft my defenses. So for all intents and purposes, for me, the draft is basically over now. But, I took a chance on Denzel Mims in the 16th round. I came back and I got Antonio Gibson, who in best ball 10s is showing as a wide receiver, which I think that's great. I mean, if you can get Antonio Gibson as like the last skill player off the board for your team, this is the guy that's probably going to get looks as a running back. And, we talk about some of these late round guys. You want guys that have opportunity to score. And, if this guy's playing wide receiver, he's playing running back, but he's going to score as a wide receiver. And the reason that that's valuable is because you need to fill minimum 3 wide receiver positions each week. There is a flex, so he could also work as a flex for your running back spot, potentially, right? But, you want depth at those wide receiver positions.
I'm real concerned about, I love Antonio Gibson just as much as you do, but a year 1 contribution is a lot to ask. But I guess in the late rounds, why not? What if, right? That's what best ball is all about. Best ball is all about what if it goes right, not what if it goes wrong.
Absolutely. Okay. So, at the high end, so that was round 17, round 18, right? Where we're picking those guys. CeeDee Lamb was the first rookie wide receiver off the board in round 9. It was a 9.8.
That seems way too early, don't you think?
I agree with you. So guys that went right before him were Deontay Johnson, John Brown, Marvin Jones. I took Matt Ryan in that round as my first quarterback off the board, which gave me Matt Ryan all day in round 9.
Yeah.
He was followed by, I'm just looking at the wide receivers here, Mecole Hardman went after him, and then Jerry Jeudy went around the end of round 9.
There's some good positivity around Hardman this year. I mean, I agree. I think it's he's interesting because he really everyone's always trying to say who's the new DJ Shark, and I don't know if Hardman qualifies because there was hype around him last year and there's optimism around here. Like last year at this time there was no optimism around DJ Shark, so I would pick him. But when you talk about wide receivers, who is that second-year wide receiver that was drafted in the second round the year before that literally did nothing that you think can be had in the last round of your best ball or last couple rounds, you think could just literally be talked about in the top 25 wide receivers by the end of the year? Do you have a guy like that?
I wouldn't say necessarily top 25 wide receivers, but probably like a top wide receiver 3, a guy that is pretty much dead in a lot of fantasy gamers' eyes is a guy like Jalen Hurd on the San Francisco 49ers. So that guy's an absolute beast. I want to say he's about 6'5". He's a big body wide receiver.
Crowded house over there, though.
It's a very crowded house, absolutely. But we're talking. You talked about the last pick. I mean, so we're talking
last
about
couple
rounds.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
that's a good one. I like it.
Yeah. Okay. So guys that I literally took. I took this player in round 13, and then I took the other player around 14. I took N'Keal Harry in the middle of round 13.
Yep.
And then I came back the next round. I took Paris Campbell.
Okay, cool. So, those guys all qualify. I mean, someone that I'm thinking of along those lines, someone that literally was a second round pick last year, just like DJ Shark the year before, did nothing, and now is in a situation where he could produce. Nobody wants him. You can get him with the last round. I think it's JJ Arcega-Whiteside, man. I think that's the one that really is looking like the DJ Shark from this year.
Well, what do you think, though? I mean, the Eagles went out. So J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, of course, of the Philadelphia Eagles. He got drafted last year. A lot of people liked him just because he's a big-bodied guy. But
just like like Chark.
Just like they like Chark. No, absolutely. But the difference between DJ Chark and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is the fact that there are now a lot of bodies in Philadelphia. Like a guy that you said I wasted my pick on in round 15, Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh, I mean, put him in the Jameis category, man.
Oh my gosh! So these are guys.
Hold on a second. There's a lot you made a great point. So I want to address that one point.
Yes,
there's a lot of guys there, but no one that does what he does. Now, again, you're right. Alshon would profile as that big-bodied receiver, but I'm just crossing him off. Like there's talk now he may start the season on PUP again, and they signed Marquise Goodwin, speedster. They got Jalen Reagor in the first round, speedster. Who else do they have over there? They
have
John
Hightower. They drafted. I love
who?
John Hightower.
John Hightower. There you go. Yep. That's what I'm saying. No one that does the things that Hightower that Arcega-Whiteside does. So. That's what I'm saying. Like he's in a crowded place, but he's owns that skill set on that team.
But maybe at the wide receiver position he does. But don't you think it's a little bit redundant the fact that they've got 2 capable, very high-end tight ends with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, those guys are going to eat up in the middle of the field. And certainly, I mean, Ertz is he been a big touchdown catcher over the last 2 seasons? Or, I know he's been a receptions monster, but is he like a 7 touchdown guy or like an 11 touchdown type of player?
Probably closer to 7. I'm going to just check right now so that I'm not going to miss.
So again, I think Arcega-Whiteside can be that guy who's like 980 yards, 70 catches, but like 12 touchdowns. Let's not forget his JJ Arcega-Whiteside's skill set in college when he was at Stanford was catching touchdowns. I think it was like he caught 21 of 22, something like that. 21 of 22 end zone fades. Like he literally, and the only one he dropped was like a bad throw. Like he almost had 100% end zone catch rate. That was why they got him.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, Zach Ertz scored 8 touchdowns. Last year, he scored 6.
Yeah, so again, that's great. But I think when you talk about who's the threat for double-digit touchdowns on that team, that's where Arcega-Whiteside. And again, last pick, last round, nobody wants him.
Well, I mean, maybe you can take some credence in the fact that he did come out and say that he was injured for most of last year, that he could barely get out of bed, he said. So,
Same with
maybe
me.
there's something to it. There might be something to it. It's hard to say, but I don't love it. But honestly, I'm a guy who
no one loved Shark at this time.
Yeah, and I'm a guy who loves Miles Boykin. So who am I going to say? How can I piss on your blanket for JJ?
Here's the thing. You talked about Boykin and you talked about Jalen Hurd. Both of those guys were 4th-round draft picks, okay?
Yeah.
Arcega-Whiteside has something that they don't have, and that's 2nd-round draft capital. And that's significant, man. That's very significant. Shark had 2nd-round draft capital.
Yeah, a lot of guys. So JJ had 2nd-round draft capital. Andy Isabella was drafted in the 2nd round. Paris Campbell. These are all guys that were drafted in the second round.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you wonder though? So like the whole Paris Campbell thing, he was injured for a big part of last year. Same with N'Keal Harry. They were both injured, and Andy Isabella was not. That worries me a little bit, right? Like the fact that
they just didn't use him. I don't know why. Maybe it was one of those situations where he just didn't get the playbook. I mean, because look what happened when they put him on the field. Do you remember that bomb? He just flew by everybody.
Oh, I remember that. I was listening on the radio. Yeah,
yeah. Like when he got his playing time, he looked good. I start to wonder why they didn't use him. I mean, it's that is the mystery to me. Maybe he just didn't understand the scheme at first, or who knows? But he didn't. It's not like some of the other guys we named, Boykin and JJ Arcega-Whiteside, they didn't look great. They looked okay. Andy Isabella looked like he lit it up, right? He looked like he lit it up.
The thing that worries me about Andy Isabella is, obviously there's DeAndre Hopkins around now. Christian Kirk is still there. They have Kenyon Drake. So he's going to be he'll be the wide receiver 3. Sorry?
Larry Fitz is going to get 50 receptions.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Talking about old, wily veterans, freaking Larry Fitzgerald is still alive and well. So, he's going to be the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 on that team. And Andy Isabella is the kind of guy that you're probably only going to want to take in best ball leagues, right? Like you would not want to draft him in a redraft because you would never know when to start the guy.
Right, correct. I mean, he'll be, what Andy Isabella strikes me? He'll be like a popular, week 4 waiver wire pickup wide receiver. Like after he has a 3-catch, 80-yard and a touchdown game.
Yeah. What about a guy who his 5th-year option was not picked up by his team, a team who just drafted LSU's quarterback, Joe Burrow? What do you think about John Ross, the nuclear option himself? He's fallen like a friggin' animal. He went in the middle of the 16th round in this best ball.
Yeah, I think at that price, obviously anyone's okay that has a pulse and some upside, but I think there's enough of a displayed lack of production at this point to be dubious, and that room only got more crowded. AJ Green presumably is coming back healthy. They added basically a 1st-round wide receiver, 1st pick of the 2nd round, T. Higgins. We all know Tyler Boyd is the definition of a great number 2 wide receiver. And, Auden Tate came on a little bit. Alex Erickson looked very competent. None of them do what John Ross does, but it's basically a make or break year. If he doesn't do it this year, which sometimes can motivate people, there's a chance that he's almost goes like the core, the route of a guy that just bounces around the league without ever having, just goes down as a bust. So I like it as a 16-round pick, but I wouldn't expect much out of it.
Well, and so I think that people make a lot out of when a 5th-year option is not picked up on a player. And listen, guys, of course, it's not like you want that 5th-year option to be picked up because, one, it's security. With certainty that player is going to be on that team next year. But with that 5th-year option comes a pretty lofty price tag. So oftentimes, it's not necessarily that a team won't want to sign that player beyond the end of their rookie contract, so after the first 4 years. But maybe they're telling the player, look, and maybe they're talking with the agent saying, look, guys, we like you. We think you're a good player. We think you're a good fit for this team. However, you have not produced to the point we're going to pay you, I don't know, $12 million for this 1 year with the 5th-year option. So we are willing to negotiate with you and maybe extend you for a year or 2, but not at that 5th-year option price tag. So I think about a guy like John Ross, who knows, maybe the coaching staff likes him. When he was on the field last year, he played pretty decent. He just wasn't on the freaking field last year. And that's been the MO for his entire career. I think of a guy down the street from you, Mr. Leonard Fournette.
Running back, a whole different ball game too, but yeah. For obvious,
But I think that's, just talking about the fifth year option, it doesn't mean a guy is dead on a team necessarily when that fifth year option doesn't get picked up, but it obviously does not bode a lot of confidence because, especially with a guy like John Ross who hasn't really performed on his team. Yeah, I mean, maybe a new team might be a little jolt to the system for him, but at the same time, when you're learning a new offense, you're learning a new scheme, there's also that potential setback as well. So, I don't know, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, on the top of the show, you said you'd want to hit on a few wide receivers that look at Mike Yeager talking about the fifth-year Devontae breakout. That's like a whole another topic that it's funny. Like there are guys like that like are set up for like that fifth-year breakout. It's very unusual. But getting back to the guys that the end of the draft, the old wily veterans, I think could be good this year. Yep. I have a couple that I've been picking up in a lot of drafts.
Let's talk about them.
So go ahead. So what are we qualifying? Are we qualifying Eddie veteran or someone that's like over 5 years in the league?
I'm thinking more like the older guys that people generally tend to avoid, like.
All right. I got you.
But even like the mid-year veterans, like I'm cool with that. I just want to know like guys that we can help our listeners target that are off a lot of people's radars. We want people to win their leagues. I don't care who they are.
Right. So if you're talking about guys that go in like the 12th round or later that are wily veterans, I think can certainly win best balls. And I'll just, I'll spiel off two or three. And then if you need an explanation on any of them, just let me know.
Yeah, let's go.
I think Randall Cobb is the perfect guy for this. I mean, he's not peak Randall Cobb anymore, but they did hire him. He's a hired gun in Houston. Will Fuller is hardly the picture of health. And I think that Deshaun Watson's really going to like him. I think that what Aaron Rodgers talked about Randall Cobb is that he's always in the right spot in the right time. He knows how to get open, and he's sure-handed. So I think in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, if you're looking for that wide receiver 4 or 5 to anchor your wide receiver core that'll probably show up in your scoring every week, Randall Cobb is a boring pick, but probably someone that'll give you 11 PPR points. I can see a situation where he's 6 catches for 60 yards every week, and if he gets in the end zone, beautiful. Yeah, what's kind of funny? So generally what our strategy is late is we want to get these high guys that can pop, right? You want a guy that will pop 1 or 2 weeks and make your lineup really as a flex play. But a guy like Randall Cobb would be is if you maybe decided to take some of those higher boom bust players earlier on, like maybe like a Darius Slayton type player, and you want to just have a little bit of a floor. Say, listen, Slayton might get like 2 points 1 week, and I need just a little bit more security. And a guy like Randall Cobb, I think, will offer that. And let's not forget, guys, he was very dynamic coming out of college. I mean, that was feels like a lifetime ago. That was before the internet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's only 29 years old. He's not even freaking 30. He'll be 30 by the time the season starts. But as of today, we're recording this in May of 2020. He's still 29 years old. So, look, DeAndre Hopkins is gone. He is not in Houston anymore. And we don't know how that offense is going to look anymore because really it's Deshaun Watson and it's a bunch of guys. So taking a flyer on Randall Cobb versus a flyer on a guy like, I don't know, Kiki QT, who, I love. It's
Kiki doesn't really have a path that like a definite path to playing time, whereas Cobb is starting. Like he's probably the wide receiver 2 on that team.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Like people are like forgetting about Deshaun Watson. I mean, they like
how good he is. You mean
DeAndre Hopkins is traded, and they're like, Watson, he's dead, he's dust. That's it. Well, he's a freaking good quarterback, so he's gonna produce, and somebody's got to catch those balls. Why not Randall Cobb?
Oh no, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
What else you got?
In that range. So
yeah,
if you talk about like wide receivers that are, let's say that are maybe past their peak or we don't expect to hit their peak. I mean, it's painful. It's painful to do, but there's 2 guys that I like in the 19th round. Chris Connolly is the wide receiver 2 on Jacksonville, and he is the epitome of a guy that can go, 6 catches for 180 and 2. He's basically in the 19th, 20th round. I mean, Gardner Minshew is not afraid to throw that ball deep. I know they got Laviska Shenault in the second round of the draft, but he does the intermediate stuff, and he'll be profiled more as a Cordell Patterson type player. And who else do they really have there? DJ Shark does it all, but you can't. DJ Shark's not going to get 190 targets. He's going to get 135. That means Chris Connolly's probably set up for 95 targets on this team, and they're probably going to be good depth right there. He's been around the league. He's probably even on the waiver wire in your dynasty league. I like him late in drafts, especially as my wide receiver 6 or 7. And I bet you he scores for you 2 or 3 times in best ball.
Look, man, this guy is an athletic player. I mean, he's only 27 years old, 27.6 to be exact. And that's right around the peak wide receiver age, right? The age apex. Coming out of college, he ran a 4.35 40-yard dash, which is a 98th percentile. He's a big-bodied dude. He's 6'2", 213 pounds. So he had a speed score of 120.6, which is also a 98th percentile, according to playerprofiler.com. So you talk about opportunity. You talk about this guy's athletic. And I like Laviska Shenault, but, to start off the year, he's probably going to be more of a gimmicky type player. He's not going to be on an every down. So
he's not a deep guy. He's not, he doesn't do the same things that Chris Conley does.
Well, and like Chris Conley, look at this. He's got a 99th percentile catch radius at 10.5 feet. Like he's athletically, he's a freak. And we've seen moments of it in his career. Jacksonville could do a lot worse. I mean,
yeah.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
How about you? You got one of these wily veterans at the end of drafts?
Well, so a guy that I'm still open to. I'm going to tell you my case for Alshon Jeffrey and why he's at least worth looking at later in those rounds. When he was on the field last year, he did produce. Obviously,
what round is he going in? What round is he going? Alshon 10th?
No, like the 5th. I got him in the 15th round.
Oh, okay.
So probably 15th round
late,
later.
No problem.
Around 15 and later. So just recently, just this week, the Eagles came out and said that Alshon Jeffrey is still going to play a big role in their offense. You're talking about how he still might end up on the PUP list. So for people who don't know, he had Liz Frank surgery, which is he had surgery on his foot. And last I checked, that's
as
pretty
Chris
important.
Liss always says. He says the diary of Liz Frank.
Oh, right. There you go. Chris Liss, of course. It's RotoWire, right?
Yeah. That's that joke always sticks in my head.
I love it.
Yep.
And look, if he is on the field, and this is okay. Look, if news comes out that he's going to PUP lift definitively, he's dead. He's off my board. But late round, this is a guy. Same thing. Where if you want a guy who could put up 2 touchdowns in a game and have like 8 receptions for like 80 yards, Alshon Jeffrey is your man. Obviously, when it's a foot, I'm always a little bit more worried if you're like more of a twitchy type receiver, but that's not really his game anyways. He's more of a big-bodied bully. It worries me that because of the foot injury, he's just not going to be able to elevate. He's not going to be able to separate, in which case this is probably a wasted pick. But for the 15th round, when guys that are going around him are like Tyrell Williams, your boy at Randall Cobb, John Ross, Larry Fitzgerald.
My boy,
your boy. I know. I got it. Sorry, I got to throw it in there. I think that you could do a lot worse than a player like Alshon Jeffrey, because if he is healthy and he can actually survive, even for friggin' 10 games, if he's on the field, he's a guy who can pop as your wide receiver 2, and he's got the ability to put up 2 touchdowns in that Philadelphia Eagles offense. So I feel like you could do a lot worse than
in the 15th round. You made a great case for the 15th round, because most of those guys, you're happy if they hit once. So I thought he was going in like the 10th, 11th, 9th, 10th, 11th round. So if you're saying he's going that late now, I've been doing a lot of dynasty startups, almost too many. I haven't been in best ball in about 3 weeks, so I'll have to jump back in again. But yeah, no, I mean, that definitely seems a way more palatable price for me.
Okay. One last player that I want to get to.
Okay, we can
really just between 2 players. So would you rather have a guy like Robbie Anderson on your team who you can get probably around the 11th, 12th round, or would you rather wait a little bit later and take Curtis Samuel, who's going now in the 13th round?
I think that's a great question. For me, I probably would go Robbie Anderson because I think that this coaching staff brought him in, would have a specific role in mind. Whereas Curtis Samuel, he was kind of there already, and they do similar things with the deep, and this coaching staff felt compelled to bring him in. Now, the difference in price between 12th and 13th, 14th round at that point is not that different. Sometimes when we talk about price differential, we're talking about like, hey, this guy goes in the 3rd and his backup goes in like the 8th, and let's just take the backup. But 12th and 13th, at that point, you're just trying to hit. There's no ADP after the 11th round. I mean, there is, but there isn't. If there's a guy that normally goes in the 16th round, you take him in the 12th, no one's going to blink. So I'd rather have the guy that they have a specific plan for, and that the coaching staff brought in. How about you?
I love it. No, I agree with you. I think Robbie Anderson is the right choice here. Look, the reality is he's disappointed the last 2 seasons, right? I mean, people had him as a high-end wide receiver 2. There were some Robbie Anderson enthusiasts 2 years ago that had him as a wide receiver 1, albeit, like
I think I was one of them.
Sorry?
I think I was one of those guys.
Oh, he might have been one of those guys. Yeah. And, he's had some injuries. He just really didn't click last year. The Jets, I mean, let's be honest, they were a hot mess. But I don't know. He's in a good situation. To your point, they brought him in. I don't think they're paying him a lot of money, but
they're paying him a lot of money. But it's on a 1 year, more or less deal. It's like $10 million, which is a good chunk of change. But they had the cap space to use, and they can get out of it after this year. I think that's a really good pick. I hadn't been thinking of Robbie Anderson that much, but if he's going in the 10th round now, I mean, you got to collect a few shares.
End of the 11th in this one.
Yeah,
before the likes of Devonta Freeman and Duke Johnson.
Yeah, he's still young enough. He's had a 10 touchdown season. I mean, he look, if he's in a comfortable situation with a coach he's played for already, I love it, Shane. That's a really good pick. I scribbled him down while we're talking. I wrote some notes, and that one I said draft more Robbie Anderson with an underline.
He's only 27 years old.
Yeah, I got one for you. So, This veteran player was a pretty popular pick last year, and then he got hurt in the preseason. And that's Devin Funchess, who's now signed to a 1-year deal on the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, it's been well documented. The fans were disappointed they didn't draft a wide receiver. They bring in Devin Funchess, a former first-round pick. Played tight end in college. They released Jimmy Graham. I think that Devin Funchess could eat a little bit in the middle of the field and be a twin tower type of guy in the end zone. So, people were aggressive on Funchess last year before he got hurt in best balls like 9th round, 8th round, 7th round. Now he's going in the later than the 15th. I think he's one of those guys I have like in almost every draft. For some reason, nobody wants him. And at the price, I think he could be a top 24 wide receiver. What say you?
Devin Funchess is 26 years old. He's bounced around the league. Last year, he missed the entire season with an injury, pretty much.
People were happy about him last year. They were aggressive.
People were, absolutely. I have him in the Dynasty League that we had. Well, I had him anyways. I ended up having to drop him, which is kind of crazy in a Dynasty League where you got to drop a guy. But look, Devin Funchess, Green Bay Packer, it's been talked about at length. The Packers did not go out and draft a young wide receiver. They've got Devontae Adams, and they've got a bunch of guys. And that's it, right? I would expect they're going to run the ball quite a bit, but hey, they ran the ball a lot last year. And Aaron Rodgers needs a veteran that he can trust, because I don't think he's got a lot of confidence in his receiving corps right now. So Devin Funchess, he's had productive years. He's done it, and that matters, right? It's the same thing with these rookies. You want a guy who's done it. And if you're getting Devin Funchess at round 17 and later as your last wide receiver, your wide receiver 8, wide receiver 9 off the board, I think that you are going to be laughing when he puts up his 2-touchdown week with Aaron Rodgers. Al, we're going to end it there. How do people find you?
Yeah, so at Alan Seslowsky on Twitter, AlanSeslowsky. I'm also putting out exclusive content, Shane, on LinkedIn, TikTok. Believe it or not, no, it's not just for dances, right? There is fantasy football content there. And then if you're on Instagram, I'm Alan Fantasy Football on Instagram. Also doing a couple articles a week and videos for Roster Watch, our friends there. So check them out. And I post all that content, tons of it on Twitter. So that's where you find me.
Guys, if you're not following Al, you have to go follow Al. He is dropping so much fire. Pretty much, it almost feels like daily. If not every other day. He's writing articles. He's doing videos. If you follow Alan, he will help you win your league. Of course, follow us on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. If you like what you're listening to, please like and subscribe. If you're watching the video, please subscribe and rate us. If you are listening to the podcast, it matters, guys. We really appreciate it.
Hit that intro on the way out too. Make it an outro too.
We're going to do it. So for Flex Matt, for Al, We are the Flex Network.
This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network.